Good evening, everyone. It is 7:09, and I would like to officially call this public hearing to order. I am Michael Bird. I'm the chairman of the Advisory Planning Board. To my left, we have Ron Scotes, Carl Shuttler, and then to my right, Terry Rogers. Tonight's agenda, we have 3 items, and we will be calling the first item to the floor, which is a detailed site plan, docket 19, TAC 09, Southlake.
Here, Mr. Chair, in the matter of the detailed site plan just mentioned, Southlake Development, I will be recusing myself in this matter.
Any objections? Okay, Mr. Terry Rogers will be recused from Southlake. Thank you. All those wishing to speak on behalf of the first agenda item, please stand. That includes the applicants as well.
Can we ask for a clarification? By behalf, can you mean in support of, or just want to speak of?
Just to speak on the case, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you're about to give are true to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief? Yes. Okay, thank you. Have a seat. The proposed application is a request to vary the requirements. Oh, excuse me. That's a wrong statement. Sorry about that. The hearing tonight will involve a presentation by city staff, followed by a presentation by the applicant. Board members will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicant following their presentations. The board will also have an opportunity to ask questions of those who spoke during the hearing. Board members will be polled for their comments, if any, prior to a motion. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to city staff. Mr. Joe Minor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Frank Stevens, our senior planner, will present the staff report for this item.
Okay. Sorry about that, Frank. Mr. Stevens, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Frank Stevens from the city planning staff, here tonight to go over with you detailed site plan 19023 for the residential portion of the Southlake community. The first slide is also an exhibit in your report. It's a location map that indicates the bordering roads adjacent to the property. To the north is Central Avenue. To the northeast is Old Central Avenue. To the east is southbound US 301. Northbound is over a little further to the east in this location. To the west are the Pope's Creek Railroad track. Carrington Station residential community is a little west of that. And to the south is the Carrington Trade Zone. The subject of tonight's hearing is the detailed site plan for the detached single-family residential units in these locations. And there are a total of 1,035 dwelling units that are proposed in this detailed site plan. There are also about 500 townhomes that are proposed in these locations through here, and there are 2 family attached dwelling units that are proposed up in this location here. The areas on this plan that are shaded in gray will be the subjects of future detailed site plans that have not been submitted yet. The area we're talking about tonight is about 283 acres of 382 acres of the entire tract. The property is zoned EIA, Employment and Institutional Area. We've, in our report, we've discussed a lengthy site-specific background information narrative. We've talked about the stakeholders meeting that was held on September 19th, and there's a summary of that memo as attachment 2 in the report. The slide that's up there now is the cover sheet of the detailed site plan set. It's just a smaller version of the previous slide showing the locations of the units that we're talking about tonight and the future detailed site plans. This detailed site plan proposes, like I said, 1,035 units, and a breakdown of that would be 344 detached single-family units, 563 townhouses, and 128 two-family attached units. There's also about a 5,300 square foot clubhouse that's proposed in the center of the site in this location here, which includes a clubhouse complex, swimming pools, open play areas. And there are also recreational amenities that are proposed as part of this DSP that we'll see further in this presentation. The architecture for the clubhouse and for the two-family attached units are also included in this DSP. The architecture for the single-family units and the townhomes will be the subject of a future DSP, which has not been submitted yet. Pursuant to Section 27-285B of the zoning ordinance, there's a finding that must be made to approve this site plan, and that is that the site plan represents a reasonable alternative for satisfying site design guidelines without requiring unreasonable costs. We've identified that on page 4 of our staff report. The minimum sized lot area for the detached single-family lots is about 6,000 square feet, and all of the lots either comply with or exceed that minimum lot size area. The minimum lot size for the townhouse development is 1,300 square feet per lot. We've identified 5 lots, townhouse lots, that did not meet the requirement, but after discussion with the applicant today, there's a way that those 5 lots can comply with the minimum requirement, so that is no longer an issue. The slide on the screen right now shows a hierarchy of roadways, proposed streets throughout the community. There are 3 access points into the property. There's one to the northeast off a 2-way road off Old Central Avenue. There's a 2-way access off of 301 southbound, and another access, 2-way access with a boulevard also proposed off of 301. This main spine road up in this location runs from Old Central down through the site and will link into the Carrington Trade Zone community and the future Liberty Park that's proposed to the south. As part of this, there are a certain number of minimum parking spaces that are required and provided, and the proposed DSP exceeds the number of required spaces by almost 1,900 spaces. This slide and the next few slides are slides of the architecture for the two-family dwellings, the attached two-family dwellings. What's proposed are several types of window treatments, varying heights of hard surface finished materials such as brick, stone, or stucco on the front elevations of this particular group of units. These next several slides indicate the different options that are available that future homeowners will have a choice to pick from. They include dormers, different window types, bay window, shutters, and things of that nature. There are 10 different models, 10 different elevations for these units. This is a side elevation of the proposed two-family attached dwellings, partial brick with several windows and treatments on the ends. And these are the various types of alternatives that could be or could be available to the future homeowners. This is a rendering of the rear elevation of those units. Each one has a garage, recessed area, a balcony, and parking space for one car in the driveway. In addition to that, that's what's included in the garage. This is a slide of the Clubhouse complex. It's comprised of two buildings that have different amenities and features in each one. There's a multi-purpose room. There's an equipment room, storage room, yoga room, lifeguard, restroom, and things of that nature. There's also a kiddie pool, a patio, a sports court over in this area, kiddie pool and swimming pool. This slide indicates, shows an outdoor like fire pit area, which would be also part of this complex. And there are also bike racks that are proposed in the clubhouse complex as well. The next few slides are elevations of the two buildings that comprise the clubhouse complex. They're linked by this covered walkway, this trellis cover between the two buildings. This is a rear view of the two buildings and at each end of the buildings. This slide indicates the locations of the various recreational amenities that are proposed as part of the project. The clubhouse and swimming pool is in this central location here, but there are things such as sitting areas, playgrounds, a dog park, tot lot, and open play areas throughout the property. There's also an extensive trail system, about 3/4 of a mile of paved trails, a 13-station fitness course proposed along that trail system, and an extensive sidewalk system that's also part of the community. These next few slides are slides that indicate the various types of recreational amenities that are proposed throughout the site. This slide is in here because we were recommending an additional pedestrian connection sidewalk from the area south here up through these townhouse groupings to get to this pocket park. That was one of our conditions, and the applicant has agreed to provide that sidewalk. This slide indicates the light pole fixtures that are proposed throughout the private areas of the community. They are characteristic of other street light features that exist throughout the city. This is a slide showing 3 different types of signs that are proposed throughout the property as either entry signage or signage for the clubhouse indicating its location. Those signs are, they're durable, and they will be backlit. That was one of our concerns about not knowing how it was going to be lit, but they are going to be backlit. This slide is a copy of the Stormwater Management Plan, Attachment 8. There are 2 basins, stormwater basins, right behind the clubhouse in this location here, and there is a trail network around each of them, so they function as an amenity as well as a stormwater management feature. And the last slide we have is a copy of Attachment 9, the Woodland Conservation Plan, which has been approved by the Park and Planning Environmental Section. There is more woodland conservation being preserved on the property than is required. There are about 114 acres of woodlands that are being preserved on the site. We're recommending approval of this detailed site plan with the conditions that are outlined on pages 13 and 14 of our report. The applicant has agreed to all of them. We've agreed to, with respect to number 1, house orientation on one specific lot, to look at possible side-loaded garage on that lot, to remove an access from it's a corner lot, to remove access from a street that has more traffic volume than a cul-de-sac would. I mentioned about number 2, about the townhouse areas. Those are being addressed. The architecture and materials for the clubhouse complex will be identified on the end walls of the 2 buildings. We've requested in number 4 that the bike racks proposed be a different design, and the applicant has agreed to do that. We've also requested that they be more evenly dispersed on the clubhouse complex, as well as providing more bike racks throughout the various recreational amenities in the project, and the applicant has agreed to do that. I mentioned about the extension of the sidewalk to that pocket park, and the last item about recreational amenities is additional temporary signage indicating what areas will be identified for the installation of a recreational feature if it happens to come after a unit is built and occupied. We've agreed with respect to number 5 regarding the replacement of white pines. Some will remain on the fringe of existing wooded areas, while the rest will be replaced with some type of native evergreen vegetation. And last item, number 6, is about the lighting for the signage, which I've discussed. The signs will be backlit. So with that and those modifications, we recommend approval of this detailed site plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Stevens. At this point now, would the applicant please, Southlake Partners, step forward and present.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Arthur Horn with the law offices of Shipley and Horn, here on behalf of the application with co-counsel Mr. Matthew Tedesco from the law firm of McNamee Hosey, who's here also. This is a development of a joint venture between Chesapeake Properties and NAI Michael. Chesapeake Properties here is represented by Scott Rout and Jamie Atkinson, and the NAI Michael companies are represented here this evening by Kevin Kennedy and Mr. Julian Curry. We have with us our engineers from Rogers Engineering, Mr. Nat Ballard, Mr. Charlie Howe, and Mr. Alex Villegas. And we have with us our transportation engineer, Mr. Mike Linhart. And everybody stood up, but the only one, everybody's here to be available to answer any questions. But we, as Mr. Stevens has said, and Mr. Stevens has done a fantastic job giving a recitation of the facts in this case, and as he indicated, on behalf of the applicant, I'm authorized to say we agree with all his findings and facts and conclusions of law, and that this is one of many of the site plans that you will see, and this one here just deals with, as he indicated, the certain number of units. There is a site plan coming in the future that deals with the umbrella architecture that will show what the single-family detached and what the townhouses look like. This one here just shows the two-family dwelling and the clubhouse. With that, as I say, we agree with everything, and we just want to be available to answer any questions if you all may have any. You all have seen us here before through the preliminary plan stages, through the other detailed site plans and the future detailed site plans to come. So nothing has changed. Just very thankful we'll be able to move forward in this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. One thing I neglected to mention was we did get an email from a resident of Carrington Station today who lives at 15201 Johnston Lane, who has a concern about any potential flooding from this property onto the Carrington Station community. We did share that with the applicant and his professional team, and you know, if you have any questions regarding that, you know, the staff and the applicant would try to address them. But I just want to get that on the record because we did receive that as an email today.
Okay, thank you. So just two. Okay, at this time, are there any questions for either the staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I've got a question, just a clarification. Throughout the staff report, it mentions, of course, for this particular proposed site plan, we're looking at 1,035 units. And throughout the staff report, it mentions 1,294, with the NAST one. However, on the attachment 2, the memorandum dated September 23, it mentions that the mixed community comprised of 1,475 units. Now it's 181 unit difference, or over 10% variance. I just want to find out what exactly is a number we're playing with.
Thank you. Yes, the total number of units is 1,475. This detailed site plan is looking at 1,035 units on 283 acres. Right. There are 382 acres. So in addition to development, the most recent preliminary plan added 66 units on 11 acres, if my recollection is correct.
Right, I understand.
It totals 1,475. No, I'm sorry.
1,560. The difference, excuse us 1 second. The difference is the 115 senior dwelling.
Wow.
That's a possible future proposal that hasn't been vetted that will have to be separately proposed?
Go ahead and say, go ahead and say.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kevin Kennedy from Michael Companies on behalf of Carrington LLC. I just wanted to clarify something for the record. Arthur is correct in that the attachment 2 memo that you referenced does mention 1,475 total units. Right. In the parenthetical that's next to that number in the memo, it says 115 senior dwelling units. That 115 unit idea is a future proposal that hasn't been vetted in any of the previous approvals.
Yeah, and I understand, Mr. Kennedy. I mean,
and so the real correct total as it stands right now is 1,360 total approved dwelling units in the project. And if we were going to come back and pursue those 115 senior units, that would be a new application that the city would review and approve, as well as the county would review and hopefully approve at that time. But the number, the real total that we're working with right now is 1,360. I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Well, actually, you're dovetailing into my next question.
Okay, I'll stay.
That I wanted to know is that, you know, based on the 1475, which obviously we're not talking about anymore, so you're saying that this proposed plan has 0 dwelling units for senior housing?
I believe this current proposal doesn't include any dwelling units that are set aside specifically for senior housing. I don't know the exact architecture of the units, but generally the units will include some that have either first floor master bedrooms or things of that nature that are geared towards residents of all ages to help people age in place. We know that's a big policy of the city and the county, and it's also, thankfully, it's kind of the direction that home builders are going these days.
Well, you know, again, this is not a dig towards you guys, but you know, this is just another example of Bowie lacking its own zoning authority. You know, one of the big things that, especially as I've been on this committee for 25 years or so, I was actually a younger guy, had hair back then. But one of the things that really perturbs me is the fact that here we are developing more and more and more, and we're not really giving any cadence or regard to senior housing. You know, there's a lot of people that are in this city that have been here for 35, 40 years, that have aged in place, and yet when we get these proposals of infill or new developments, we're not taking any consideration. Here's a great example, and again, this is not a dig towards the developer. This looks like a beautiful project. I've dealt with some of these folks before. They're quality individuals. So I know that the city of Bowie will get a good product. But again, you know, we have a brand new mayor, we have new council people, and I know that former Mayor Robinson, you know, was an advocate of trying to get zoning authority. And I'm just asking the new regime if they will continue that march towards getting the zoning authority, because you know, here we are in the city of Bowie, and I'll get into like the, you know, the schools, because I spend more time really looking at what the stakeholders meetings are like and some of the issues that are coming up. And, you know, in the stakeholders report, there was a question about schools, and there is no schools to be built. Well, you know, what that's going to do, it's going to force our kids from K, you know, to 12 to be bused. You know, instead of being able to go to their individual schools where they can walk and be part of the community, we're taking our kids out and putting them all over the place. And I'm sorry to grandstand, but this really is a very sensitive issue to me, and I think that the voters of Bowie just sent that same message out to the community and our elected officials. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one for staff. Was a TIF a part of this annexation for this?
The TIF, my recollection is, came afterwards after the annexation.
I was just curious, thanks.
And Frank, the TIF itself is basically for infrastructure improvements, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, barring no further questions, I have a listing here of those individuals that would like to speak. If you could please, when I call your name, if you could come up and just for the record state your name and your place of residence. And then if you can limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes, we'd be very appreciative. Let's start with Mr. Sidney Wise. Good evening.
Good evening. You know, I see Southlake as a continuation. What's your address, sir? I'm sorry. My name is Sidney Wise. I'm a resident of Carrington Station. Need any more?
That's good. Thank
Okay. I see this Southlake development as a replacement for the Carrington development. It still has some of the issues that I have talked about before. You talked about the school system. The school system doesn't have adequate buildings for the elementary, the middle school, and especially the high school. At Bowie High School, there is 20 vacancies there. As you know, about 20 years ago, Bowie was supposed to be the East Coast Silicon Valley, but the school systems did not satisfy the business people who wanted to start the Silicon Valley here. And so therefore, we lost out. They moved to Reston, Virginia, to get Fairfax. And I think Reston, Virginia is in the Fairfax school system. The other thing I'm concerned about is the justification for the sports park. We have plenty of sports parks in Bowie. Yes, we do. We have one over here off of Woodmore that's under use. In Carrington Station, we have a soccer field, that's basically not used. And then we have plenty of soccer fields up in Allentown Park. I don't quite understand the single-family dwelling configuration. I would like an explanation as to how is that? What is it? Why is it we have two-family dwellings? Is that in a single house, or is it attached house, or what is it? I don't understand that one. You list ambulance service, medic service, fire engine service, fire ladder truck service. You don't have consideration for the school service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Derek Mallard.
I'm a little tall. Okay. Good evening. Derek Mallett, Devonshire Estates. Good evening, everyone. There was a few concerns that I have. Number one, I am opposed to Southlake development. The question that wasn't asked was the cost of the homes, and is there any affordable housing? I heard the gentleman mention as far as the senior, but the affordable housing. Due to tax prices rising, if you're starting homes that I heard in the Amber Ridge one between $400,000 to $500,000 with the rising cost, who's going to be able to afford to keep these homes? So they're going to be affordable houses for individuals. Also, I didn't get the define where it says 20 live work units. I didn't get that. I wanted a more understanding of that. But I'm more for or against this because I believe this development takes away from the resources, does not add to the people who live here already. I hear everybody speak of education, which is tremendously number one on the top of my list, but I also like to speak of what does this development do for the people who already live here, who've already struggled with not just schools, but places to, may I say, shop for groceries. This is going to add to that list of grocery needs, these resources that we already take for granted and may have to drive away to get. What does this bring? Does it bring jobs? Does it bring jobs to the community? Afford jobs where we can afford, where individuals can work here and afford to live here, still live here. I don't have a lot to say on it, but that's just my concern and that's just me. I oppose it. I doesn't feel it does anything for the citizens that already live here. It takes away the resources and does not add any at all. Thank you.
Ms. Jacqueline, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, Grisette? Grisette. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. As he said, I'm Jacqueline Grisette. I live at 17001 Queen Anne Road. I'm here as an individual citizen, a former resident of Bowie who lived in Bowie for almost 20 years in Pointer Ridge. I also represent a group called the Prince George's Citizens for Smarter Development. It is made up not only of Pointer Ridge, it looks like going to join us, Citizens South Bowie. It's also made up of Balmoral, Beechtree, Carrington Station, and many of the people who live along 301 who will be greatly impacted by this development. I've been involved in this since it was Carrington, and from the time that it began as Carrington, I have the same questions the gentleman from Derbyshire had. No one asked for this development. We don't see the value added, and everything that was promised in Carrington has disappeared, and that concerns us. Let's go through the list. First of all, we were told that 301 would be widened and that we would know that the funds were available at the state level before this development would progress. We don't have that information. The second thing that we were told is that there would be a school. In fact, NAI Michaels said it would fund a private school to serve it in addition to making contributions to the public. School seems to have completely disappeared. We were told that they would make sure that there was police coverage. I just saw in the report that the Bowie Police Department is supposed to cover a development this size in addition to Bowie, and also a major recreational facility that will have rental rates for people outside of Bowie to use. Have a hard time understanding that. We have been told that a TIF is supposed to make this happen. That TIF has not been approved by Prince George's County citizens. It may be a way of raising taxes that is not consistent with Prince George's County law, and there will definitely be opposition to that. We have been told that there was going to be tree protection. Mr. Michaels actually looked in our face and told us that he would do everything he could to preserve the trees along 301 so that the development would blend in with the rural tier that forms most of 301 going down. Instead, they cut down every single tree. And the answer that was given to us was, well, they're only 30 years old. But there are trees that have been back there for hundreds of years. We are worried as that tree canopy moves towards Carrington Station, what exactly is going to happen to protect the look and to prevent the noise that will occur to those homeowners who purchase. We are concerned about the aesthetics of Prince George's County. We don't want just townhouses and things thrown up out in open fields that is not consistent with the environment. The thing that makes Bowie such an outstanding place to live and why I enjoyed living there for so many years, I never forget that when we had a visit from the President of the United States, he said, Bowie is a beautiful city in a forest. This development and those that continue like it are beginning to change the nature of what has been beautiful about living in Bowie. I want to add a couple of more things. We have been told that there's going to be trails, clubhouses, and amenities. Those are all great, but what happens too often with these developers is they build all the housing. And as Beech Tree and Balmoral will tell you, you then struggle to get them to honor their final commitments to build the things that were quote-unquote to make the community a great place. Why can't we start with some of those things before we start building multi-unit housings, and why does the single family always come last? The last thing, two things that I want to say. The dwelling for seniors is a very serious item. If you look at what is happening to Bowie, many of our seniors, and if the mayor were here, I'd tell him straight to his face. I asked him where does his family live and where are they going. Most of them are to Anne Arundel County. We lost Leo Green to Anne Arundel County. They're going there because Anne Arundel County has put forth senior housing. It's a great place to retire. Why can't we build what we need? This development adds to our cost. Multi-units, more and more kids with a smaller footprint for taxation, which means the people who are already here are bearing the cost of that. You're building things that cost us more, as opposed to seniors who really don't.
Yes, ma'am. No offense, but if you could please.
Okay, last point, the retail. The retail number in here just keeps growing. That defies all common sense of what's happening to retail today. Just go and take a look at Bowie Town Center and the vacancies. We have no idea what this retail is going to be. They were supposed to have an advisory committee that was codified into law to meet with us with every stage of this development and give feedback. It has had no meetings. Thank you.
I have a few questions for the applicant, please. Thank you, Mr. Horn, for your presentation. And there's no rhyme, no reason to my questions.
Okay.
I just kind of threw them down there, and hopefully put them out to you and your staff, your team can answer a couple of them. So the first one is, have you had a chance, an opportunity to visit the letter from Ms. Nerdin, the resident from Collins Station, about the floodplain management plan?
I don't
This is what
think-
Mr.
that the one that was
Stevens
sent
mentioned.
today? Okay, yes, the one that was received today. Yes, now you want to come up. What basically I wanted to say, of course, is that this application has already gone through the preliminary plan of subdivision.
Yes,
And during the preliminary plan is when they look at these issues, environmental, all the adequacy of public facilities test is done at that time. So that was done previously, so it has been done with reference to this development. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. And only reason why I bring it up is because it was brought to our attention. It wasn't part of our package. So I just want to make sure, again, for the public, that everyone is on the same sheet of music and has the same information.
Correct.
Hi. Just to add to what Mr. Horn said in response to that letter, I think the resident raised a lot of concerns about basically plan review issues related to civil engineering, floodplain, storm drainage, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to say this is a project that's been going on for a long time, quite a few years now, and we have actually been through reviews at the city level, the county level, the state level, and the Corps of Engineers. So we have all of our approvals from those various bodies in place, fully permitted, we're subject to inspection, and we're following those plans. So I did want to say that the concerns raised are definitely valid, and that we have gone through the full range of reviews from those different agencies. So, thank you.
Don't go too far.
So my question, or my statement rather, is kind of to piggyback off my colleague, Mr. Scopes, and actually one of the presenters, Mr. Mallard. in essence is, I understand the project has been going through a number of years, it's going through a lot of different iterations and so on and so forth. But you know, again, to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Scott said, because of the climate now within the city, how detailed or analytical have you spent? I mean, obviously I understand that there's zoning ordinances and there's various rules and guidelines that you have to follow, but what kind of deep dive did you do as far as what is the actual impact of your development on the ecosystem of the city? Is this something that's going to stand alone as far as the Southlake project, or is it something that's going to be integrated into the fabric of the city as a whole?
Well, this is a mixed-use project, so it has a lot of commercial as well as residential. And as you mentioned previously, it has received TIFs, tax increment financings, to be able to operate. So yes, it can stand alone, but what it's doing is it's adding to the area, because it's one of the speakers mentioned that you know, they talked about grocery stores and things like that. Those are the targets that this project is seeking. So this project will not only bring the amenities that they have for its community, it will be something that can be enjoyed by all the residents of Bowie. And there is a synergy between this development and the sports park that's right next door. And it's part of the community. I don't know how else to answer that. I mean, it is a development that that will be very positive for the city of Bowie. I think one of the things that I want to say is that you drive down 301 now and they say, oh, well, it looks like they cleared things out, but 45% of the property is going to have those trees remain. So it's not a situation where it says, oh, everything is cleared out. This development is very carefully integrating itself with the current environmental features, as well as it will have some additional tree plantings and stuff associated with it. So it's going to be a very beautiful project when it's all said and done.
All right, thank you. Staff, by chance, were you able to do a feasibility or impact study as far as the additional services that have to be rendered from the city to this new development? Or is that something that's down the line?
Chairman Byrd, that's something that is looked at the time of the annexation. There's a requirement that we look at the facilities that would be required to support the development and the city's ability to provide those. And so there was a very detailed analysis done at that stage, as well as when the TIF process started. There's a very intense process in terms of going to the market and borrowing money that the county needed to be assured that the project was going to be able to generate the taxes that would provide for those future services. And so that was done very in great detail as part of the TIF process. So we've actually done it 2 different times at 2 different levels, and so I think your concern has been addressed.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
I just want to ask one more thing. It's not in the staff report. Like I mentioned before, we have here in Bowie a unique situation, and I'm hopeful that the developers and the team, as they go along with the commercial and the retail aspect of the project, that they will work in conjunction with Mr. Miner's staff, the economic development, to get types of businesses that are not redundant. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of the stuff that's coming in, is just absolutely redundancy. I mean, we don't need 100,000, exaggeration, fast food restaurants. Mm-hmm. So it would be hopeful, get it on record that you guys will work with Mr. Miner's economic development staff and, try to partner with them, bringing in the retail and also the commercial aspect.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are you at liberty to talk about the price point of the price points for the homes being sold? Have a range?
Scott, you got to come to the microphone.
I guess, and to piggyback off that question is really something I'm really concerned about is, have you done a feasibility study or market study that will say that this area can support whatever your price point is?
Yes, I'm Scott Rauch with Chesapeake Realty Partners. We're the co-developer on this property. Feasibility study and market studies are part of our initial plan. We have already signed on our builders who have already assigned certain lots. They feel very confident that their products will be readily available and easily marketed on these properties. The price points are different for different sizes. We have 16-foot to 24-foot townhouses. So they start in the low, I believe, 300s for the townhouses. I think the 2/2s are a little bit in that range. The single families will be starting somewhere in the 400s. So we are within that price range. I don't know the exact limits that we will be achieving because we are still a couple years away from the actual bringing them to market. We are offering also additional apartments in this community, which will bring market rate apartments to the area. As Mr. Kennedy stated before, they're proposing some senior housing that will hopefully be on the commercial property that will be a little bit more affordable for senior living.
What about the amenities?
The amenities, we are planning all of our amenities up front. The community center and the pool are part of our first phase of development. They will be in when the first set of townhouses start up. That will be ongoing as we build each phase of the development. Additional amenities will be built in each area. We have like 7 different major areas and parks that are cohesive with the development that's surrounding them. So as those areas develop up, the amenities will already be there for the citizens to use at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one. Have you guys ever considered, building a school, be it an elementary school, and including that as part of the residential? I think you might get some more community support if you started to think along those lines.
Well, I'll say this, that, every development that comes along now has to take in the background what used to be Carrington, which is now the Southlake development, because this was approved and the numbers were included back as far as 2004. So it was anticipated the number of students who would be living in this development that far back, and it's actually the school board that does the numbers and makes a determination as to whether schools are necessary in a particular area. And as of now, as far as we know, the school board is still saying no. But this project right here has already gone through that process and make that determination about the school adequacy based on its previous approval.
I was just wondering if you had thought about that or taken that into consideration. I think it could be helpful moving forward. I'm sure the school board would be more than happy, even if they got one elementary school out of it, for example. Yeah. I'm sure it would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. I can't speak to that. I do know that they set the priorities as far as where the new schools and stuff will be located. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor. All right, I'm open for a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the staff's report of approval with the conditions as stated for DSP 19023.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Scopes to accept the staff's report of approval with consensus. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Scopes and second by Mr. Shuttler. Are there any discussion?
I just want to mention that, we're not the final say here. Really, in my opinion, we're basically a stepping stone at this point. This is where we have to have our own regulations. So what happens in Bowie needs to stay in Bowie for us. Eventually, we could say yes, we could say no, it doesn't matter. Eventually, this goes to the county council, and in this moment, the way things are structured currently, they're the ones to make the ultimate decision, not us. So we could vote yes tonight, we could vote no tonight. Quite frankly, it's a moot point. But we need to get that power back in Bowie, and until then, the county will continue to make the decisions for Bowie, and I think that's something that we all need to realize. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, you kind of stole some of my thunder, but I also wanted to...
My bad.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Yeah, the recommendation of the Advisory Planning Board taken at this hearing will be filed with the City Council, who will make the final determination, and I believe that hearing is scheduled for December 2nd. Any person of record may appeal the decision by the Advisory Planning Board to the City Council within 15 days after the notice of the board's recommendations. And then I would also like to, again,
Yeah, call the vote.
okay, I'm sorry. Yep, with that being said, we'll have the vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. So ayes have it 2 to 1 nay.
Mr. Chair, if I could just clarify one thing for this motion that you just made. You mentioned consensus. It's a consensus of the members who are here this evening. You don't have a quorum this evening.
Correct.
And Mr. Rogers has abstained as well. So the vote that was just taken is a consensus motion as opposed to a full motion of the quorum of the board. So I wanted to be clear that everyone heard that and just didn't understand that maybe the board was just made up of the people sitting here tonight.
No.
Because we had 3 people absent and there's not a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Minor. So getting back to my little diatribe, but I think that really developers, I think we need to do a better job. All of us, developers, residents, all of us need to do a better job and really take a look at what is the impact of this particular development on I call it the ecosystem. Whether it's from services, schools, amenities, public services, public works. I think we need to take a more detailed deep dive. And so that's where some of the questions were coming from. As per, and you're absolutely right, Counselor, as per the guidelines as predicated today, you meet those guidelines, with some recommendations of change, a couple of A's to A's and whatever. But for the most part, I think we need to do a better job. I think you will have better buy-in from the community. I know one subject came up, a comment came up about a school was promised. Did that just disappear? Was that something was accurate, or was that just hearsay or speculation? And I appreciate you bearing with me too. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, it's true that some of the initial concepts for the development did include a proposed high-technology school site that one of the previous owners of the project had, I guess, conceptualized and was thinking about. It's my understanding that because some of the other approvals related to this project ended up taking longer than everybody expected, that gentleman ended up investing in or contributing towards the same kind of high-technology school concept that's part of the Prince George's Community College. So it was originally anticipated to be an annex on this property back when it was known as Carrington, but instead that facility actually got built on the Largo campus of Prince George's Community College.
Okay.
So it did happen. It was just relocated to another site. Similarly, in the early days, discussing the Carrington Project, a library site was talked about. And as you know, that library facility was actually located on the Hall Station project.
Okay.
Just across the street. So these things did happen, and the amenities were delivered to the community. I think it just as a matter of timing, because our project took so long to get off the ground, they ended up happening in other locations. But we helped with the library on Hall Station, and the other gentleman did help with that high technology school, but it's part of the Largo campus of Prince George's Community College.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for those, I just want to make a note that Prince George's County is in a position right now where we are cutting edge with regards to the private concerns, developers, whatever you want to term them. They will build the schools, and after 30 years or whenever the obsolescence of life, they'll be turned over to the county. I don't know all the details. I know that it is an initiative that is starting here in Prince George's County. I believe there's 4 or 5 targeted areas in the county, and everybody's kind of looking at this right now to see if it is going to be successful or not, because indeed it is cutting edge.
Yes, sir.
I started to speak, but the comment was made that these projects have happened. The school, no school has happened. So when you end the statement of these things have happened, that's misleading.
Okay.
And the library was directed
Thank you for your comments, but yeah, the public hearing portion of this hearing is closed, so I apologize. Sir, I'm glad you got that point out, but we have to go ahead and continue with the agenda for this evening. Again, so this will be revisited by the City Council on the 2nd of December. I highly suggest all those that are here today to please come back here and speak to the City Council.